Hello and welcome to Mangum News. I'm your host, Elijah Mangum. This week we'll be discussing a school shooting in Texas, new announcements and trailers from Star Wars Celebration, my review for the first two episodes of Obi-Wan Kenobi and Top Gun Maverick, my first cooking segment, and my exclusive interview with WLBT anchor and reporter Courtney Ann Jackson. Without further ado, let's begin. 19 students and 2 teachers are dead after a school shooting in Uvalde, Texas. The suspect was 18-year-old Salvador Ramos, who shot and severely wounded his grandmother before entering Robb Elementary School with a rifle and handgun. The door was unlocked and he encountered no armed resistance. He locked himself into a classroom and killed his victims before being killed by a Border Patrol agent. Texas Governor Greg Abbott confirmed the incident during a press conference.
It was Salvador Ramos, an 18-year-old male who resided in Uvalde. It's believed that he abandoned his vehicle and entered into the Robb Elementary School in Uvalde with a handgun, and he may have also had a rifle, but that is not yet confirmed according to my most recent report. He shot and killed horrifically, incomprehensibly, 14 students and killed a teacher. Mr. Ramos, the shooter, he himself is deceased and is believed that responding officers killed him.
On Wednesday, Texas Democratic gubernatorial nominee Beto O'Rourke confronted Governor Abbott during another press conference.
Out of line and an embarrassment.
Sit down and don't play this stuff.
The next shooting is right now, and you are doing nothing. This is totally predictable when you...
Sir, you're out of line. Sir, you are out of line. Sir, you are out of line. Please leave this auditorium.
President Joe Biden also gave an address in response to the shooting following his return from Asia.
It's a time to turn this pain into action for every parent, for every citizen in this country. We have to make it clear to every elected official in this country. It's time to act.
Star Wars Celebration 2022 kicked off on Thursday and lasted through Sunday. At the Lucasfilm panel on Thursday, the studio unveiled new trailers and announcements for their upcoming film and Disney Plus slate. Rogue One spinoff Andor will start streaming on August 31st. And released its first trailer.
People are standing up. That's what a reckoning sounds like.
Disney Plus's Willow sequel series will start streaming November 30th and unveiled its first trailer as well.
The unknown. That's where we must go.
The Bad Batch Season 2 debuted its first trailer with a fall 2022 release date.
Let's get to work.
The Mandalorian Season 3 will start streaming in February, with Ahsoka and new Star Wars series Skeleton Crew starring Jude Law set to release later next year. Finally, the 5th Indiana Jones movie will be released on June 30th, 2023, with Harrison Ford returning. Obi-Wan Kenobi's 2-part premiere succeeds with great action sequences, suspense, and heart that will leave you excited for next week. Overall, I'll give it a 9 out of 10. Top Gun Maverick is a sequel that is better than the original 1986 classic. The film succeeds with breathtaking flight sequences, a heart-filled script, good performances, and a soundtrack with old and new favorites. Overall, I'll give it a 9.5 out of 10. In my first cooking segment, I will give you some tips for your Memorial Day cookout. If you would like to see more cooking segments, let me know in the comments section down below. Hello everyone, this is Elijah, and today we're going to be preparing hamburgers. Our ingredients include hamburger meat, salt, pepper, egg, breadcrumbs, and steak sauce. We also have utensils, including our grill, a bowl, a spatula, tongs, and 2 plates. First, prepare the grill. Place the hamburger meat into the bowl. Add egg, steak sauce, and breadcrumbs. Mix. Form the patties. Add salt, pepper, and Mrs. Dash. Cook for 6 minutes. Flip the patties and cook for another 6 minutes. Place the patties on a plate. Add your favorite ingredients and enjoy. Can you describe your career from when you got started to where you are now at WLBT?
Sure thing. So I'm from Corinth originally, in the very tip-top corner of the state, the northeastern part of the state. I went to Ole Miss and did the honors college there, majored in journalism with a broadcast emphasis, and really had some wonderful experiences afforded to me while I was there at Ole Miss, both in classes and outside of the classroom. Within the classes, had Tom Brokaw teach a class for a week in one of my honor sections, which of course just doesn't happen. So just soaked in all of that I could. Had the chance to interview Dan Rather when he was on campus, and really spent a lot of time in the Student Media Center when I was there. We had what we called Newswatch. It was a 5 days a week, 30-minute live broadcast. And so that gave me as much of a real world experience as possible, even in the college setting. But it also, and I think we may talk about it in more detail later, but it also gave me the opportunity to get to do things like cover the presidential debate when it was on campus my junior year. And that really kind of helped me immerse myself in what more of a real world experience would look like. I interned my summer between my junior and senior year in DC, doing more political coverage with a group called Talk Radio News Service. And one of the things that was invaluable about that experience is that they used their interns as their reporters. So really from kind of the first week that I was there, they said, okay, here's your press badge, head to the Capitol, cover this hearing. And so I was covering hearings. I was covering the confirmation hearings of the Supreme Court justice at the time when Sonia Sotomayor was being confirmed to the Supreme Court. And so all these experiences while I was in college just helped kind of confirm this is what I want to do. My interests have always been so varied that journalism just seemed like such a wonderful fit, because I enjoy meeting new people. I enjoy sharing things with people, but I get to learn something new every day and share it with people. And so that's one of the things that I thought that I would love about the job. And now here we are 11 years later, and it still is that way. And so when I finished at Ole Miss, my first job was here in Jackson at WDBD, Fox 40. Was there for almost exactly 2 years before what they called the shared services agreement happened. For lack of a better explanation, it was the merger with WLBT. And so I moved over there as a Monday through Friday nightside reporter, which is what I had been at Fox 40. And of course, we were reporting for both stations when that switch happened, but did that role, continued in nightside for about 6 months before the statewide reporter at the time moved on to his next job and was offered that position. I had already been doing a lot of work over at the state capitol, and so I had a familiarity with what the role would look like. So I started doing that. I guess it was maybe 2016 that I first started anchoring full-time in addition to my statewide duties. I did the weekend anchoring in the evenings for about 6 months before I started anchoring Monday through Friday. I've anchored in both the 4 and 4:30 roles, depending on which time of the year it's been. Different years we've kind of switched that back and forth, but that's a very quick summary of a lot of time. But my friends and family joke with me and say that I'm not at all short-winded, and so they are amazed that I do what I do, because we have to be so concise, right, in journalism and in broadcast journalism. So you cut me off at any time.
Yeah, that's what they've always said about me since I was real young, that I needed to work, I needed to talk for a living. So
look, there is nothing wrong with it. My stories are never short unless they're on TV.
Yeah. Yeah, I always have a story to tell at home and stuff. So but that brings me to the point, though, that to me, 2 big things, and one reason why I think that, you know, you're on for my Memorial Day special is because of your national coverage. And so, can you talk? There's 2 events that I think are very important from your career. First is the 2008 presidential debate. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure thing. So that's what I mentioned. It really was, at the time, I didn't realize maybe how consequential it would be for my career later. I was a student reporter at the time. So that's why I say to you that what you're doing is so wonderful, because immersing yourself in it, there's nothing like it. And so to have that opportunity, they credentialed one student from each of the media outlets within the Student Media Center, from radio, television, the newspaper, to be part of the presidential debate coverage. And so they had built what was called a media filing center. It was a very large, and that's putting it mildly, tent that was built alongside the Ford Center where they held the debate. I'll back up a little bit to what kind of made it even more important, and kind of the history looking back. Like I said, I was working for Newswatch, the Student Media Center, and I remember being on the square the week of the debate, trying to figure out what I was going to wear for the night, covering the debate itself, and got the text that John McCain might not be coming to campus. And so immediately I went back to the Student Media Center. We changed up the newscast for the night to reflect what was at that point breaking news. There was a lot going on in Washington at the time. This is when Barack Obama was the Democratic nominee. John McCain was the Republican nominee. Of course, as people know, John McCain did end up coming to campus. And then we were part of that media filing center, like I mentioned. And I don't know if I've really done anything quite exactly the same since then, but it was journalists from not just around the country, but across the world who were in this media filing center. We watched the debate on television screens. And as soon as the debate was over, we had they call it spin alley. So they had different representatives from both of the camps, whether it be someone who they planned to put on their cabinet later, or a senator who was there to watch and support their party's nominee. And it was just a mad dash to get as many of those interviews as you could. And so that's what we did. I had done stories on campus, but nothing to rise to that occasion, to that nature. And it kind of gave me that bug to say, you know what, political news, it's fast paced, but it is something to be said for getting to be a part of this and to watch history kind of on the front lines, right? Because the very next day, we laugh and say that was on a Friday night, and on Saturday, Ole Miss beat Florida. It was the game where Tim Tebow, we made Tim Tebow cry because they had lost the game. They ended up winning the national championship that year, I think. But one of our leadership part of the university said on national television the next day that, and then in the Student Media Center, she said, Ole Miss is just winning on every front this weekend. We've hosted the presidential debate. The football team has won. And it was in those kind of moments that I was like, yeah, you know, part of history here. And so it really did kind of spark that reporting bug. As much as I already knew at that point that it's what I wanted to do, it really was an added confirmation. And I think probably really confirmed that covering politics was going to be part of what my career would be.
And part of that, this is an additional question before I get on to the next one, was just curious, who were you able to interview during that night? Anybody?
Yeah, so I remember at the time, and a few of them I didn't know at the time, but ended up becoming household names. People like Susan Rice, who ended up being on Barack Obama's cabinet, interviewed Rudy Giuliani that evening. He, at the time, I guess, was, I have to look at my dates. He was either, maybe had just left his position as mayor in New York, or maybe at the time still was, but was obviously still very involved. It was funny, we interviewed Shepard Smith because he was an Ole Miss alum. So we interviewed him before the debate started about what having the debate on campus meant. And so those were just a few of the people, but it was a mad dash that evening.
I can imagine you're probably really cool to interview some of these people. It
was, I guess, the first time that you're just kind of thrown into it, and you're like, okay, I need these interviews. And you don't really think, oh no, here's John Kerry. Oh, here's Rudy Giuliani. Here's this person who's going to be part of this cabinet if this candidate wins. You're just saying, okay, we got to get the story. Who's going to talk? And so it's never really, I'm sure that there have been some moments, but it's usually not a starstruck moment for me. It's, we're getting the job done, right?
All right. And then the next event that I think is of note took place 10 years later during the 2018 U.S. Senate coverage. Not only did you cover that election, but you also got to sort of moderate or was one of the panelists for the debate. Can you describe that as well?
So that was one of those election cycles that we knew was going to be busy, right? We knew before things got going, and it just continued to get busier and busier. People will probably remember various comments made. We knew that it would catch national attention because of when our election was going to be positioned alongside the rest of the country, because there was the chance that the majority for the Senate could hang in the balance of what was happening in Mississippi. And so there was some national attention on that. Also, of course, this was a special election to fill the seat of Thad Cochran, who at the time was still living but had left that post. Cindy Hyde-Smith had been appointed by the governor, so she was serving as more or less the incumbent in that moment. But at the same time, you had other notable names, Mike Espy, Chris McDaniel. You had other people that had run before, had held public office before, and different comments that were made throughout that put it into the national spotlight even more so. And so by the time that that WLBT hosted that debate, there were really more national eyes on that race, because people were wondering what's going on in Mississippi. This is a seat to fill a longtime senator who was the appropriations chairman, held a lot of power and clout within the U.S. Senate, and what's happening there, because it ended up not, but it could have impacted the majority, because when we knew that there was more than likely to be a runoff, the way that they called it a jungle primary, I don't know if you'll remember that, because in those special elections, you don't see what party it's not a party split primary situation, because it's a special election. And so there were all these additional variables. Luckily, by that point, I had established contacts in the political world. I had really covered each of the candidates in different races or previous roles in some kind of a way. But it was definitely more of a juggling act than some of the other campaigns that we've covered, just because of the fact, like I said, that it was that jungle primary, everybody's running all together. Comments that were being made were getting national attention. And so we were getting kind of pulled from a lot of directions, people wanting to say, well, hold on, do you have this? Did you ask them this? Did anybody get in front of this candidate this day? But getting to be a panelist for the debate was something that I'd not done before. And so that was a wonderful experience to get to have, and to be able to get in front of the candidates in a different sort of way, and really kind of try to press them on some of the issues that were outstanding at that time. And like any time that we get in front of a candidate during an election cycle, it was all about trying to get them to answer the questions that our viewers and that the public, the voters, were wanting to know at that time.
How would you describe a day in the life of Courtney Ann Jackson?
Well, no day is the same, that's for sure. But in terms of just kind of a baseline schedule, so I laugh and say I'm about as normal of a schedule as you can get for a TV personality. I'm 9:30 to 6:30, so what we call dayside. I typically would send in my pitches for the day, my story ideas before I leave home to go into the station, and we'll have a morning meeting and discuss those, and I'll either get the green light on one of those, or it may be a day where something else has happened while we're in the morning meeting, or somebody's sent out a tweet and we say, well, we need to run to this. But generally I would get my assignment done sometime between 9:30 and 10. I'm what we call an MMJ, so I'm shooting my own video, I'm editing my own video, writing the story, and then fronting that story, whether it be in the field or out live. So I'm getting those interviews set up as quickly as possible because I also anchor that 4 o'clock show. And so that kind of pushes back some of my deadlines, maybe a little more so than others, because that takes out a 30-minute chunk of editing time for me. And so I'm trying to get things scheduled as quickly as possible. On a typical day, I would have a couple of short versions and then a longer version for the 6 o'clock. I'm also, as part of my statewide duties, sending that longer version to Meridian, Hattiesburg, Biloxi, and Columbus. And so they are then running that story that I've done for the day, whether it be something political or something else. And then making sure that the story gets up to the website before I leave for the day. So although I'm supposed to be done by 6:30, that's usually not the case, trying to wrap up a lot of things at the end of the day. But like I said, you never know what the day will bring. You know, I keep a go bag in the car that has a different change of clothes, because I would normally go into work in a dress or something dressier, but I keep a pair of jeans and a news polo and rain boots and tennis shoes and everything else. You learn through the process of doing this for several years that you kind of got to be prepared for anything and everything. You don't know when you might end up on the side of the road covering a manhunt, or suddenly someone of note comes into town and you wish you'd had something different to wear.
What would be your advice to an aspiring journalist?
So I feel like I've probably mentioned this a few times throughout the interview, but it's something that I think that is so vitally important, is to just immerse yourself as much as possible. So if you're in high school, figuring out if there's a way that you can explore even something like what you're doing, something where you're starting to work with videos, starting to think about writing. Once you're in college, getting as many internships as you can, finding ways to intern at the station nearest you, or if it's somewhere else, and just immerse yourself as much as possible. Really have a good understanding of what you're getting yourself into. You know, somebody that likes a fast pace, something different every day. Not everybody likes that, but it's one of the things that I love most about my job. So immersing yourself, paying attention to that writing, making sure that you have good writing, because it's going to be the foundation of everything that you do. If it's a broadcast journalist, an aspiring broadcast journalist, really getting comfortable with not feeling like you've got to be someone else on camera, right? You'll have some people who'll say, well, I want to try to be like so-and-so. And you can take attributes or things that you think are good from that. But at the same time, you'll never come across on camera as wonderfully as you do when you're just being yourself, right? There may be some things that need to be refined, but oftentimes young journalists feel like they've got to be someone else. And when they start to be themselves, whether it be if they kind of talk with their hands, or if they don't say something quite as officially, guess what? That's great. We really strive towards making things sound more conversational. And so that's why I go back to that writing piece. But just immerse yourself, learn as much as you can. Don't be afraid to try something new.
In honor of Memorial Day, I would like to thank everyone who has currently or previously served in the military, especially those who have given their lives for our great nation. That's all we have for this week. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Mangum News will not return until Sunday, August 1st. Until then, you can check out my stories over at Dark Horse Press, starting tomorrow with my coverage of Pepsi Pops. Thanks for watching, and happy Memorial Day.